That is the plug that goes to the TV.
Okay.
All right, we will call to order Courts and Public Safety. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Erickson,
Here.
Mr. Morse,
Here.
Mr. Hardy,
Here.
Mr. Walker,
Here.
Mr. Beggs.
Here. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from March 14th, 2024.
So moved.
Support.
Mr. Morris.
Walker.
Mr. Walker. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Any changes to the agenda? All right, that will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Very good. Public comment. Public comment.
Long White Valley City Mental Products.
Well, thank you for being here. Janet, thank you for being here as well. All right, with that, consideration to approve a letter of understanding for seasonal part-time pay. We have that in our packet. Was the sheriff gonna be here to talk
I
about that?
Thought someone was going to be here from the sheriff's department, but I can, touch on this somewhat. There were some concerns related to the, seasonal part-time, with the way that it is worded in the contract. And you can see that, last paragraph in that section, where it talks about the hourly rate of pay. And that is the change that they're looking to make. With regards to certified and non-certified, and allowing the, sheriff the ability to, an agreed upon range of pay shall be at least $18 per hour, not more than the starting wage of a road deputy.
And this is for, the specifics of that is a non-certified part-time seasonal employee. So this would be, our
Gold Township.
Marine Patrol, essentially, because, even the Golden Township deputy would be a certified officer, so. I think that's Bob or Craig, I don't think
I
there's
think
any other.
that's Marine, yeah, it's the
Yeah.
only one that's a non-certified position, and the other thing too is that that's actually reimbursed by
DNR.
So,
Tim, may I?
Yes,
For those of us that sat on the negotiations with the POAM, there was a couple things that kind of relate to this, even though they're non-certified people, that I think it should be understood that the benefits for personal days and sick days have to be used by the end of their employment, and that there is no guarantee going forward to any positions that come up within the sheriff's department, because there's, remember what Tim Lewis said, Mr. Beggs? He said, I want the most qualified person that applies to the job working with my deputies. I don't want to hire somebody just because you're here seasonally.
right.
So just as long as, that understanding is there, this makes a lot of sense. But with that understanding that, everything has to be done at their last day of employment, and there's no expectation of any other employment with the county.
Yeah.
So essentially, we are already doing it this way. This is just making sure we have it in writing, right?
to clarify, yeah.
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
The big change is that could have been interpreted before that they were going to make starting deputies' wage. And with this, they are not going at a starting deputy's wage.
Okay.
But
All right.
other than those two very simple things going forward.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Good. Any department head reports? All right. Another opportunity for public comment. With that, we'll adjourn Courts and Public Safety. Thank you. That was painless.
That was exciting.
You might have wrote the
I might have.
Each,
4 minutes.
each committee is going to have the same amount of time allotted to use.
You made it in 4 minutes.
Right, 4 minutes, is that, all right, well.
Long wait till 11:30.
You ready, Ms. Anderson?
Got babies.
I am.
Okay, I'm gonna call to order the Personnel and Health and Human Services Committee meeting. Can we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Erickson?
Here.
Mr. Beggs?
Here.
Mr. Hardy?
Here.
Mr. Walker?
Here.
Mr. Morse?
Here. Can I entertain a motion to approve the minutes from March 14? And I'd like to take note that it was a 4-minute meeting, 12, 10, 16.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right, any comments, conversation? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Any suggested changes to the agenda? Being none, can I entertain a motion for approval?
So moved.
Okay, Mr. Erickson, support. Mr. Beggs with support. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Time for public comment. All right, being none, Ms. Phillips, our county treasurer, I'd like to invite you up front, talking about the quarterly report relating to the 40-hour work week and request to extend it.
I'm glad I didn't hesitate to come down and move my together.
Moving right along.
Well, I just want to start first by just thanking all of you for approving that additional employee, bringing that employee on early, prior to Betty's retirement, because, I mean, it took us a while to find someone. We actually went back to a candidate that we interviewed a year ago and asked her to come in to have a chat, and we were sold this time around. So we hired Samantha Smith. She started beginning of March, and she was arriving just in time to dive into settlement, so she got her feet wet quickly. And she's doing very well. She, just a little background with her associate's degree in general studies, so she's early on in regards to her education, and she has an interest in studying accounting, so she's had some accounting courses, and it was just refreshing to be able to have a conversation with someone in regards to accounting, and she knows what's going on. So that was a goal of ours, and I think she's going to do just fine in our office. The treasurer's office is not the same that it was in 2017 when I arrived. So we've got some accomplishments, and some accomplishments to celebrate, I feel. You know, when I came in, the general fund had one CD that was for $500,000, 8.5%, that earned $2,500 a year. My first month in the office was I got an annual bill from the bank in regards to service charges that amounted to $13,000 to $14,000, and I'm thinking, what is this? When the bulk of the money for the county was sitting in that bank checking account, and it's not earning any interest. It was just offsetting service charges. So banks pay like an earnings credit to offset service charges, and we had about $12 million sitting in there and got a $13,000 to $14,000 annual service charge bill. So that was my first thing, is to dig in and get bids from banks. And so now we maintain maybe $2 million in a checking account, and we're earning interest on it, and everything else is invested. So you all saw that in the end of the year report, that the general fund earned $283,000 in 2023. Looking back in the past, there was $4 million in other funds that was invested. Don't know what the earnings were, and we'll report in regards to that. But today we have $31 million invested, and we're earning $1.3 million in other funds. So it's pretty exciting. And interest rates helped this past year, gain us that. But the treasurer's office, I mean, when money comes in, we don't let it sit in the checking account. It's only earning over 1% in the checking. So anything that comes in, we're constantly moving the money out. We can bring it in within a day, and we can move it out and get it invested that same day, and it's earning interest. So we do that throughout the year. Even the state education tax, we collect that for the state, and we disperse it out on the 15th of each month. When that money comes in, there's no reason for that to be sitting in, the checking account. We actually invest that as well, and then that money, the state doesn't receive those earnings, general fund receives those earnings. So we earned about $34,000 in 2023 just on the state education tax money. ARPA, Tracy and I learned last year at audit that we don't move earnings out of ARPA too quickly. We wait until the audit comes through because there might be, they look at the amount of revenue that's in there, and then the revenues have to be expensed. So we leave that dividends and the interest earnings in there just to give us that cushion, and then after audit we can move that to the general fund, and that was going to be about $179,000 in 2023. Property taxes. When we came into the treasurer's office, it was all about you collect delinquent tax. But I soon learned that we're not just all about delinquent tax. We're also, our money is coming in its current property tax. So our county operating, ambulance, Oceana Council on Aging, 911, all of that is county tax. And so we have to pay attention to what's being charged, what's being out there to collect, and what's coming in. And one of the questions that I was asked when I was running for office from Newfield Township Treasurer, she said, what is the county doing to make sure that what we collected is what we were supposed to collect? County wasn't doing anything. We were accepting databases coming in and seeing what else was due to the county, and that was what we called settlement. So it took me a few years in regards to that. Equalization director helped me, BSNA helped me. Other counties do this as well, that you set up a separate tax database that is just strictly for settlement. So we know the original tax amount of what the L4029s are saying is supposed to be collected. We verify their databases. We're their second set of eyes. I remember Dan Kerwin saying that, geez, Mary, we left those numbers over 3 times. I totally missed that. So it's just having different sets of eyes in regards to the L4029s, making sure that the millage is input correctly in the tax database, then you can assure your original tax roll is going to balance. And so we balance to every township's original tax roll. And then adjustments are done throughout the year. During the current tax and delinquent tax, that affects the taxes that are going to be collected. If taxable value increases or decreases, it's going to change what's going to be collected from the original roll. So we actually process those in a current database, and so we know the original roll is what's supposed to be there with taxable values and the L4029s. We know the adjustments that are being made. That the township made the adjustment, we made the adjustment, so then we know when it gets to settlement that the taxes to collect is what they actually collected. And then we share all that information with all the taxing units so they know. So 911, for instance, I've gotten calls from Ray before. He's like, Mary Lou, how come this is off? So actually some people don't really pay attention about the taxes that are going to be collected for them. And so we share those reports so they can see the original roll. This is what was adjusted. This is what they're supposed to collect. This is what I did receive. This is what the township treasurer paid to me. And this is what the county's going to pay out for delinquent taxes. So it was a very time consuming. It is throughout the year. But I think it's necessary compared to when that Newfield Township treasurer mentioned that to me. She came in after the previous treasurer was embezzling. So, those checks and balances need to be in place. So we accomplished that. And then the other thing that we did, all the assessors and the township treasurers, to kind of ease up with settlement, a tax heading that you see on your tax bill, you might not know what it is. So like county operating, there can be 16 characters and it can fit on a tax bill. So first of all, the taxpayer should know when they get a tax bill what the heading means. So we did a uniform project throughout the county, but the other thing that did was when we go into settlement, we used to prepare these huge Excel spreadsheets in regards to combining all this information, just so we knew how much to pay out. Because everybody played ball with a uniform tax heading project, we're able to take a settlement report that BSNA provides, we merge all the townships into one, and we can disperse off of one report, and we convert that into an Excel spreadsheet. So it'll actually eliminate some time versus adding time to our daily work. So we've accomplished quite a bit in regards to just current tax at the office. We never did before. Delinquent taxes. I know Bob probably remembers this being on the board, that we asked, when I came in, the current treasurer was giving money to the general fund. And I'm coming in and thinking, why are we borrowing money when we should be accumulating this money to purchase delinquent taxes? So the board at that time agreed that it was a good plan. What we did is we saved, we didn't pay an attorney to set up the bond. We didn't have interest expense that we were paying on the tax, on purchasing the delinquent taxes. So at this point in time, our taxes were just over 3.3 million in delinquent taxes. And we have in a fund that we created, a 516 fund. It is the delinquent tax revolving fund that currently has 5 million in it to purchase taxes, and I don't have the village taxes in there yet. So we're to that point, and I'm waiting to hear from Michigan Association of County Treasurers in regards to how much we actually need to maintain in a delinquent tax revolving fund before we can start giving back to the general fund and claiming those surpluses annually. So we're real close. And that's exciting. That's an exciting feat. There are changes in property taxes. The assessors now have the ability to grant a principal resident exemption without having to go to a board of review. They can do that for a veteran as well. They can grant the veterans exemption without going to the board of review. So what that's done is we used to do changes to the tax roll in July or August after the July board of review, and after the December board of review, we'd be doing that in January. There's still, some board of review changes, not a whole lot anymore. But what happened is we're getting these continually throughout the year now. We were getting principal resident exemptions right up to settlement. And that's the first year that that's really happened. So it's crunch time at settlement to get all those processed. Changing the existing the current tax database and updating delinquent tax database. We haven't had time to do the delinquent tax database. So we've got taxpayers out there waiting for their refunds, and we haven't been able to get to it yet. So processing changes to the tax database is happening more often than what it used to. We now have claims that we're dealing with in regards to people that lose their property to foreclosure. We spend a lot of time in foreclosure prevention in the treasurer's office. Mindy in particular will make phone calls. We take the forfeiture list, that who's got to pay. When it comes to doing payment agreements, we're calling and reminding people, hey, you had a payment agreement last year, are you going to need one this year? And so we're doing a lot of preventative to assist taxpayers, to remind them that now's the time to get this done. And then making sure we're having those conversations. Are you going to be able to pay out those taxes by March 31st or not? If not, we need to help you and extend some time so that you can have that time to pay those taxes. And it takes time, but I think it's necessary. Tax certifications are coming in. That's something new. back, I think it was September 2020, that the law changed that you have to get your taxes certified from the county treasurer before an assessor will allow you to split your property. So if you had a 20-acre parcel and you want to split it into 2 10s, you have to make sure that the taxes are paid on that parent parcel before the split can occur. That basically is necessary because what was happening is the county treasurers were getting stuck with people coming in and there was a delinquent tax bill. Well, a split occurred and the taxes weren't current, so therefore now you got 2 separate owners. Who's responsible to pay those taxes? And we get the brunt of it. So it was the county treasurer that actually introduced that legislation. It passed. I wish they would have included when they do a lot line adjustment, same thing can happen if taxes aren't current, who's gonna pay it? And most assessors will, they figure out a lot line adjustment, on a split, they have to, on a combination. They should certify to make sure taxes. So we have a lot of those inquiries coming into the office, so we have more traffic. So, other goals that we want to accomplish yet? So you're probably asking, okay, we're going from 30, continuing with the 40 hours a week, with an extra employee in there, but it's taking a lot of time and training. I'm actually learning a lot of new things yet because I'm utilizing Betty to pass off some things to me so that I'm ready next year to be able to assist the office. Mindy is training Sam, and so that she can learn more of Betty's duties. And we're still training Amber. She's only been there, it's been less than a year. So we've got 2 very new employees, and we're still learning, and I've been there 8 years, I'm still learning. So it takes time. Chart of accounts, the administrator's office is really in charge of general ledger. I'm in charge of assigning new general ledger account numbers. Dr. Sobey went through and did that chart of accounts project, and I know he was anxious about it when it was going live. It was a lot, and he did it on the weekends, evenings and weekends, because we just certainly didn't have time here during the day to do it. But when I go to assign new account numbers, it needs to be tweaked, and so we find things periodically, and it's going to take some time to go in and just kind of revisit that, if you will. But it's a necessary project that needs to be done. When a local treasurer leaves, the existing local treasurer might not, they might not train them, they're gone. And so it comes on our shoulders, because if they're not doing their job, it's gonna affect us at settlement. And so we'd like to create a new book. I've learned a lot over the years, just to be able to assist them when they come in, that this is what's expected in regards to collecting taxes and dispersing taxes, just to make things go smooth. And then last but not least is our we have an old tickler system. We have files that are, January through December, that are reminders that this is what you need to do. I think back to when I decided to run as county treasurer, my CPA at that time for my husband's business mentioned that he said when he started into the business, he was an auditor for the city of Boston, and went into the offices, and you got all these desks around, and he said it's just interesting that when one person leaves, nobody knows what that person does. And so he was asking about this desk that had a pile high of paperwork, and he's asking, what's this all about? And they're like, oh, they left. Nobody was doing their job. So the tickler system and having the procedures and those reminders is necessary, so that you can go to a month, pull it out, and it's like, okay, this is what we need to do this month. And so we're working on cleaning that up, typing them up, organizing it, so the next people that come in know what's required in the treasurer's office. So I asked of you to continue with the 40 hours, and I'm asking this board that even going forward, I don't, with everything that we've got going on in the treasurer's office, you know, unless a new department head comes in, when I retire, maybe they won't be as aggressive as I am. I don't know. But I think the treasurer's office really needs to stay at a 40-hour work week, versus when we don't have any room to bring anybody in, you know, anybody else in. So I'm not quite sure why the county was 35. It was interesting when I came in that you're working a 7-hour workday and my employees were taking a break. And I'm going to the administrator and it's like, why do the employees get breaks in the middle of the day when they're only working 7 hours? And then we put a stop to that. I mean, it just, it didn't make any sense at all. So I'd like to continue with the 40 hours and I would like your blessing to do that.
Mr. Morris?
Yes, Mr. Walker.
May I?
Sure.
In all of the tenure that I have spent on the Oceana County Board of Commissioners, I have never seen a department head document as well and as concise as what the treasurer has done for us on this. This, I told Mary Lou, this should be an example that is used to tell people exactly what a county treasurer does before they run for office and look at everything they do. It's very, very well done. And the bottom line is, the documentation that we got yesterday, I think the cost of going to staying at 40 hours is it $18,000 some dollars, Craig?
$20,498.
$20,498. This is, I mean, this is, I would hate to see anything slip back to where it was because there wasn't enough hours to do it. And Mary Lou didn't bring up, and I've mentioned to the board members, my fellow board members many times, how active the land bank is. And I think Mr. White could shake his head that the land bank is very active, and it's because of Mary Lou Phillips. It's because of our treasurer that we're looking at, you know, the land bank in the last, if this grant goes through for Valley City Metals, the land bank will have brought in close to $1 million into Oceana County within the last couple of years. And it's only because we have a treasurer that has taken the initiative, and that takes time. So.
We spent the morning on that this
Yeah, we did.
morning. We got here this morning and Vaughn and I are emailing each other back and forth.
You know, and that the project with Valley City is large enough that Fishbeck Engineering Firm is online and they're helping with all of the paperwork and doing a lot of work, you know, with it. But it's not something we would have been able to do. We wouldn't even been started with it.
Mr. Arnold. I'm sorry. Just kind of a quick question. I have a small little place in Florida, in Sarasota County. When they send out their tax statements, if you pay before this date, you get a 3% discount. If you pay before this date, it's a 2% discount. If you pay before this date, it's a 1% discount. And then if you pay this date, it's the regular tax. I don't know, and I know Ed's in the back, I don't know how they set that up so that they offer a discount rather than a penalty at the end.
It's gotta be the local unit that's offering that.
Or it's state law.
Oh,
It'd have to be in their tax law.
Oh, can state law would have to be,
I think so, in order to.
well, it's a little more, you know, when you view it, you go, geez, you know, if I pay it before the end of the month, I get this discount, and then they list the discount, you know, as they go through. So kind of maybe I don't want to say marketing ploy, but.
And like when you purchase materials, you know, you pay early, you get your discount.
Yeah, but that might be
Crazy to give it
something
up.
if it's, you know, maybe it is a state law, but it'd be kind of interesting to see what that is, and maybe that helps with the delinquency, you know, because ours is if you don't pay it by this date, you're gonna get a penalty. But it entices people to pay, well, geez, you know, I can save $100 if I pay it by the end of the month. So,
Some people pay their tax bills the minute they get them. Usually the bulk of the county money is coming in September. Well, I would say, because they disperse every 2 weeks.
Okay.
So we're getting the money every 15 days, and I think the statute says within 15 business days they have to disperse. But most of the people, wait to pay the taxes, and I'm surprised at how many would rather just come into the county treasurer and pay the taxes, and then they're paying a 4% admin fee, and then they're starting to pay 1% interest.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how, how people think.
well, I wanted to bring that up because it was, when I looked at the tax bill down there, I'm like, well, this is kind of neat because it's an incentive to pay early.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure, they're calculating the income the same way, but, something to look at anyway.
Yeah. I think when I was doing mortgages, if you were working with somebody out of Illinois, it was interesting how the different tax bills are done up. So it might be a quarterly tax payment. I mean, for us to be, twice a year, it's just interesting how different states are set up.
Can we just clarify too, so this is for just the rest of this year, you're kind of holding off on 2025 and seeing how that goes, or are you maybe hoping this will be, I know today's ask is for this month, this year,
This year,
Yeah.
yeah.
but I guess we'll talk about that when time comes.
But I guess the point I'd like to make is, and I hope I made that point in not only my presentation, but my write-up, is that this office has got a lot going on, and Betty's not gonna be there next year. And I still have 2 new employees, and so I don't see us going back to a 35-hour week. I really, truly don't. I don't know why it took me so long to ask for it. We just kept doing things and doing it, and it's like, oh, this is crazy, with the amount of time that has to be put in to get the job done. So just something to think about in the future.
Mr. Beggs or Mr. Erickson, you have any questions, comments?
Yeah, thank you. No, Mary Lou, I'm just reading your conclusion, and all I've got to say is I surely appreciate your work ethic, and I know where you got it.
Yeah.
And
I was raised right.
you had the best. And even from Mr. Roach being down there in the dark, to Billy K being there before you showed up in the morning and being there when you left, I think the county really owes you a thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Appreciate it, Bob.
And I will say, so I came on in 2021, right? So all I know is what good work you do already. It's nice to hear from Mr. Walker's, he knows the history here more, and and Amy does too, as well, as far as, and Paul, about how many improvements you've made to, $283,000 in interest this past year. That's fantastic. That's a whole department, certain departments, and so thank you for the efforts that you've put into that.
Mr. Morrison, you probably heard me say that Mason Oceana 911 was getting next to nothing in interest. They were doing the same thing. They just had set in a checking account until I was on the board and was treasurer on the board. And Mary Lou set up all of their investments for them too. And she's done that with other units of government.
Yeah.
We actually started, and we've never done this in the past, and I'm asking myself, why not? Council on Aging and 911, the current taxes come in the wintertime. December is when we start collecting their tax. We've got the current disbursements coming in, and the money used to just sit there in the checking account in their funds, and then we disperse it to them at the first of each month.
Mm-hmm.
Why not be investing that money while it's sitting there? So we started doing that, and the Council on Aging is absolutely loving it in regards to the interest that they were never involved in, like Michigan Class. So a lot of times we just email Kay, it's like, Kay, do you need any money this month? She's like, nope, leave it where it is.
Yeah.
So we're still thinking of new ways to, maximize their earnings so that we can. And I know rates are gonna drop eventually, but we're gonna go with it while we can.
Yeah,
So one last comment on what Craig brought up. I was sitting here thinking about, as you were talking, and a lot of people, including with property taxes, I don't pay my property taxes for the last week because I have them invested. And I'm collecting interest at 5% now on that before I come up. And I think there's a lot of people and businesses that think that way. Whereas if the state would work with some type of legislation where there could be incentives for people to pay ahead of time, people would take that, that right off the top, and we wouldn't have the big flood of taxes coming in during that last week. Some people would be paying right away and catching up. It would make it a lot easier for every one of the counties if they were coming in during the whole period instead of at the end.
Mr. Hardy, did you have something?
Yeah.
You wanted?
Oh,
okay.
no, I just wanted to reiterate what Bob said, that I know 911 really appreciates your input, and they've had some great luck with that, so,
Excellent.
yeah.
It was a no-brainer when they
Yeah.
knocked on my door. I mean, the first January 2017, salesman came in, and I'm thinking, why wouldn't I be doing this? But I did some checking. I went to the mentors of the other county treasurers that had been in the office for a while and asked questions, and it just made sense.
Yeah. And the rates are pretty good for having
They
that
are.
liquid fund availability, so.
And they make it so easy. I mean, there was a period of time when rates dropped a couple of years ago where West Shore Bank actually stepped up, and they were paying us 0.60 in a money market, but it was better than what anybody else was getting. But we had to manually calculate the interest on each fund to get that 0.60. Where Michigan Class, every single fund has a separate sub-account.
Yeah.
And we get the statement, we know exactly how much interest or how many dividends that fund earned. We do a journal entry, and it's easy. So unfortunately, I don't know, we might have to go back to manually calculating interest depending on what's out there, but again, it's a time-consuming effort to maximize what you can. I just want to mention as well, and I think Tim, you're on with the Road Commission. Road Commission just got their $3.5 million in March. Their bond, the note that came through. So I was working with them to get their funds set up, and that money came in. It's like, I'm sending that right to Michigan Class, and so I was just talking with Road Commission yesterday in regards to, she's like, how am I gonna balance my checking account, because they were gonna have a separate fund, and so just trying to assist them in regards to that. But they earn 10 million, so they're paying 4.2, and they're getting 5.5, for a period of time until they have to start paying it back. But can't let it sit around.
And I would say you were one of the most conservative and fiscally responsible people I know, so you wouldn't come with a request without, it really being a need, so I appreciate that as well. Just more logistical as far as, so what other departments, what's the breakdown of like 35-hour departments versus 40-hour departments here in this building now?
I think the courts are 40.
Courts are 40, yep, and then, administration, clerk, register of deeds, we're 35.
Okay. Do you anticipate any, requests coming from other departments to go 40 hours as well?
I haven't heard from others, with regards to the increase in hours. Could we use them? Yeah, we could, but, right now it's functioning, it's functioning the way it's needed. I don't know about you, Amy, how's your office with regards to the 35 hours?
For the most part, 35 hours is sufficient, but there are times when, right in the thick of elections, that we could use more time as well.
In the past, Phil, when the 35 hours has gotten difficult, is when the different departments have lost a long-term employee. until the other employee, the new one gets hired, gets caught up and gets, you know, acclimated to how the system works. You know, that's when we have stepped up and we've increased, you know, to 40 hours at times.
I mean, an employee can earn, I think 35 hours, correct me if I'm wrong, 35 hours in comp time, meaning that, you know, they're working over their 35 hours or 40 hours in our case right now. And then they can earn this comp time, and it's a liability to the county to have that out there because it's something you're gonna have to pay out down the road if it's not used, when it's not as busy. I still have an employee that's earning comp time and she's working 40 hours, but she's doing the training right now, so it's hard to, it just slows you down.
Yeah.
And so she's actually reporting some comp time, and I'm allowing it because it's necessary.
Okay, well, thanks, Ms. Phillips.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate you
you.
coming and presenting. Department head report time. All right, being none, public comment. Being none, I adjourn the meeting.
Are we still good to go?
A second.
Okay, I'd like to call to order Finance and Administration Committee. May we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Erickson,
Here.
Mr. Morse,
Here.
Mr. Beggs,
Here.
Mr. Walker,
Here.
Mr. Hardy.
Here. I'd ask for approval of the meeting minutes from March 28th, 2024.
Make a motion to approve.
Support Walker.
Motion by Beggs, support by Walker. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carried. Are there any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, I'll ask for approval of the current agenda.
So move.
I'll support that, Morse.
Moved by Erickson, support by Morris. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carried. Is there any public comment at this time for the Finance and Administration Committee? Hearing none, I'll move on. Administrator Briard, request for approval of Resolution 24-08 to maintain the operational budget for the Michigan Conservation District.
Mr. McKean had, proposed this resolution to the board, with regards to the conservation district, and I believe they're the MAEP,
NAPD.
Yeah,
MAP.
yes. Inspectors, I believe, changing them from 42 to 24 and making them state employees rather than conservation district, which would reduce the amount of funds that they're providing to the conservation district, and that's what this resolution is for. Is to ask the state to maintain the level of funding that they have for the conservation district.
Mr. Hardy?
Yes, Mr. Walker.
I am totally 100% in favor of this resolution. I don't know, sitting on the health department board, I don't know how it's ever gonna work when they start cutting the total number of people that are out in the field and be able to get these things done. I don't think it's gonna happen. Paul and I deal with that every time we go up to Cadillac with the state doing that. I thank Mr. McKean for bringing this forward, and it having the state take over anything I'm suspicious of to start off with, but especially something this important. There's a very valuable function that's done there, and we need to maintain something that works. It's working, why change it?
It's been successful for years. It's, you know, most of our best growers have been enrolled for years. And it's necessary, especially with farm waste and runoff, and these things are important.
Any other questions, comments? Mr.
Yeah,
Morris?
and I would just say, I totally agree with it too, and I mean, so if they are short on time, as far as being, you know, resources and time, who's gonna feel the hurt there? It's gonna be rural areas, not southeast, you know, Michigan, you know, so I just, yeah, absolutely, we need to keep local control on that one, for sure.
What else?
I think it kind of goes back to, your plumbing and mechanical inspectors too, that if the state of Michigan is doing those, how long it takes to get those inspections, and, I think that would fall right in line with that.
It is ridiculous, as what Paul and I have brought up here before, the 3-year septic field inspections that there are going to be in Michigan. In District 10 alone, the inspectors will have to do about 33,000 inspections a year. And the sanitarians that we have to do those inspections, there's 15 of them. If the state comes in with that.
Concur.
It
Physically impossible.
All right, Mr. Ed Vandervries, consideration of approval of the 2024 equalization report and approval to sign the L4024 and L4037.
Good morning, everybody.
I'm sorry you had to wait so long.
Oh, that's okay. I was rushing to get up here, so I was happy that I got a chance to hear the treasurer's report, because it's been a real pleasure working with Mary Lou over the past few years, and the things that we've been able to do to make settlement go easier, and know and be able to find the things that were wrong, when things were out of balance. And I did think of something when you were talking about the discounts. The reason why they can do that is they don't have capped taxable value like we do.
Okay.
So when we have a millage rate and we have a taxable value, that's a set amount of money. It's not like where they're changing their levies each year based on their market values.
Mm-hmm.
And they're setting them probably, with the ability to offer that discount.
Sure.
So,
I don't think we're giving away any money at that point.
No, they have the ability to offer that incentive. We really don't because of that cap.
Because of the cap.
So, speaking of money, and it was nice to hear how well the revenues are for '23. They're going to be even bigger this year. We had quite a big increase. This year, our assessed values went up 15.74% over 2023. And our taxable value, even though the CPI was 5.1, the cap hit people's taxable value, and then at 5%, we have an 8.85% increase in our taxable value. So over the last 3 years, 4.92% increase in taxable, 7.71% last year, 8.85% this year. It didn't surprise me that we have a lot of millage rollbacks coming this year. Because as those assessed values went up 15.5% last year, again 15.74% this year, the millage rollbacks are affected by transfers of ownership primarily, because in that equation for doing the millage reduction fractions, it takes out losses and additions from the equation. And so the main driver for that millage reduction is the adjustment to taxes, to that taxable value. Well, 5% was the cap for most people's adjustment in their taxable value. So what it tells me is that additional 3, almost 4% increase is due to a lot of properties being sold. And because that gap between assessed and taxable has been growing bigger and bigger over the last several years with that, with our large increases in the assessed values, that we had a lot of plus adjustment over and above that 5% because of those sales. I think we're heading back in the direction where I think our CPI for next year is trending to be in the low to mid 3% range. If they continue to be successful in bringing the inflation rate down, that's what it looks like for next year, because it'll be the inflation rate or the CPI index is used through the September of this year, and then they use the previous 2-year period. And then if they do continue to get the inflation rate down to around 2, we'll continue to drop, going forward. So if you look at the page where it has the year over year, the year by year in the report, you'll see it start trending back toward, around 1 1%, 2% increases in that CPI. So don't get used to this big increase, because it's not gonna keep going. Our total equalized value for this year went to $2,588,942,132. So over $5 billion in true cash value of our ad valorem property. And our taxable value went from 1.4 billion to 1,612,157,463. And Mary Lou did a great job explaining, the adjustments. This is your starting numbers that will be, the taxable values that will be used for the original roll for 2024. All of the local units rolls we based off from this number. And so, the PREs will change, and veterans exemptions will exempt taxes. They changed the law though, so you're not gonna see the taxable value go down. The assessed and taxable for a veteran still stays on the roll. They shifted the burden strictly to the treasurer to zero out the taxes. And I'm not sure if they've determined how they're doing that yet, but that will have to be explained before July. As far as the equalization report goes, I included a copy of that and I signed that along with the chair and the clerk, and then all of these numbers have already been uploaded. The report is actually generated from the state website, so they have these numbers. The state field staff that supervises or oversees the county equalization departments, they've already done their check, so I don't expect that there will be any state equalization factors. In fact, I'm sure there won't, or they would have let me know by now. And I'm happy to say that with the work that our local assessors did, other than a couple of changes, we had really the cleanest turn-in this year that I've had since I've been here. But I think that is primarily due to the majority of the assessors actually took advantage of something that we offer every year, and that's to do a pre-March Board Review audit of their role. For years, they wouldn't do that, and a couple of times it cost an assessor to have to get factored because they went into their board review with an incorrect starting number. And when we had to correct that, they ended up with a ratio above 50, so it cost them a factor. So this year we have no factors to apply. So I provided you with a 4037 Board of Commissioners certification form, and those need to be signed by the chair and the clerk, and then the clerk will send those out to the local units. So I expect our numbers, we're the second step. County equalization is affirming what the assessors have done. They all did their jobs as they were supposed to. In the report, you could look through the individual 4023 reports. It shows you where their assessed value was at last year. And for equalization purposes, everything that I work with is March to March. And that's why these are the original numbers that we'll use for all of my reports, for the millage reports, the 4029s. Although that number will change because of the adjustments, those numbers are all the original numbers. But on that 23, you could see unit by unit where the starting assessed value, and then if they had any losses, and losses would be for something removed, buildings torn down, and then the adjustment. The adjustment is what that 5% increase, well, actually that adjustment is the 15% increase that you see. And that's the market value adjustment to the assessed values. And then the additions for new construction is on a separate line. The loss in the new does not affect that ending ratio. So for an assessor to, let's say they have a starting ratio of 45, if they don't have enough adjustment to get from between 49 and 50 for their ending number, that would result in a factor. And so if you do happen to look through those reports, you'll see on each of the classes of property, because each class is done separately, so agricultural, commercial, industrial, and residential. They all had enough adjustment to get that 15% increase that allowed them to not get a factor. Some needed more of adjustment than others, but everybody did what they were supposed to do. Does anybody have any questions?
So, still learning all that. I mean, this is my 4th year as a commissioner. I'm still, you know, just like Mary Lou said, you still learn. I think I'm understanding this now a little better. Was that something you said? That 8.85% increase doesn't mean that Tim's and Craig's and mine, you know, each individual's taxes are going up that much. It just means the overall taxable. So because of was it Headley, it was 5% max. There's a proposal, was it 94A or whatever?
Correct.
Okay, so we can't, our individual taxes can't go up more than 5% if we didn't move or anything like that.
Correct. If you didn't build anything new, you did not just buy last year in 23, then your tax increase should be 5%.
Right, okay. But because so much movement as far as people buying new houses or building new houses, that's why it's 8.85%, because we're talking cumulative here versus, you know, okay, all right, that helps me so much.
And it's in the units where I assess, I was really kind of amazed to see how many properties that were assessed for over $200,000. They had taxable values around $100,000 that sold, and their taxes are going to double because their taxable value is going from $100,000 with the uncapping to $200,000 or more. That's where that increase is coming from. That increase in the taxes and the taxable value. But the thing is that because that tax base grew, because of new construction and all those uncappings, because the overall county tax base went up the 8.85%, that's what then drives those millage reduction fractions. I've already started to work on those. I believe the county's millage reduction fraction this year is 0.9913, which means you're not going to collect the same as you did last year. You're going to collect 0.9913 of what you collected last year. So for everybody's taxable value that did go up to 5%, if the millage rates have to come down, you're actually not going to pay 5% more than you did last year, because not only the county's millage rates are being reduced, most townships and villages are also being reduced. So overall, you're going to see an increase. You're going to be paying more taxes, but it's not going to be a true 5% increase in most cases.
4.999.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
In some cases, a little less.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
Although I temper that same statement though, because you've got a new ballot for Committee on Aging, Council on Aging.
Yeah.
So if that gets restored back up to 1, it's a 0.9.
Yeah, fraction.
It's less than. So that could make up the difference to get you back up to 5%. Or more in some cases.
Great. Anyone? Thank you. I appreciate the explanation. Administrator Biard, Administrator's review of select claims for payment and Administrator report.
The claims have been provided to you. Were there any questions on those? Okay, if not, I just had a couple of things. Wanted to follow up a little bit more on the newsletter. Jana has been working diligently on those. She's reached out to the papers to see about what it would cost to have the flyers inserted, a QR code for the Oceana Press. I believe that one's the one that is on, it's online. She's checking into all that and they'll have those numbers back for us, and has also reached out to Paul about the Echo to see about getting it inserted in there as well. And then the only other thing, I put this in my report, but wanted to say Phil and OCEA and Curtis Burdett did a wonderful job with the presentation for the workforce economic diversification study. The study didn't provide a lot of great, it was a lot of information and it was good to know, not great information, but the follow-up in that meeting, with all of the people working together to come together,
Action planning.
yeah, for some solutions and different things was phenomenal. So I just wanted to say, great job, and that was really worth it.
Thanks. Great. All right, moving on, department head reports. Hearing none, public comment at this time for finance and administration. Hearing none, I will adjourn the finance and administration committee. And Mary, you didn't speak? We'll take a short break till 11:30 for the regular board meeting.
I'm looking for a half hour next meeting.
Okay.